I believe every movie should be watched. The biggest question is like where you should watch it. Is it worth watching in theaters? Is it worth, streaming it at home? Is it worth watching somebody else cover it on a YouTube video? I think that even with bad movies, you can learn something good, even if it's, what not to do in a movie. But I watch a lot of movies that I don't always cover on this channel. I don't make like a video on it because I may not have that much to say about it. But I still watch a lot of movies, and I figured, why not just make like a monthly wrap-up video talking about like my favorites, talking about everything that I watched, talking about what I listened to, talking about, I don't know, what I ate, all the stuff that I did throughout the past month that I viewed, that I experienced, and just kind of rate it from the lowest to the highest. Maybe it'll be movies that you haven't heard about, and maybe you guys will be like, yo, you missed this movie, and recommend it to me and I'll watch it. I don't know. We'll see. Let's start with the one that I don't recommend. I know I had just mentioned that every movie deserves a chance to be watched. I don't think this is a movie, though. Like, there are characters in this movie that pretend to be human, but it does things that don't make any sense. It's the story of one of those infomercial audience members, the ones who just pretend to clap and ask like fake questions that are pre-written. It's their story and how they become famous, but they don't want to become famous. The story of the actual clapper and the one that turns on the light and how that came to be would have been way more interesting than this thing. Because the thing is, a lot of people bash bad movies, but at least bad movies give you like something to laugh at or something to be enjoyed by. What's worse than a bad movie is that movie that stands right between bad and mediocre, that offers you absolutely nothing. That's this movie, sadly. It's got like good comedic actors in it, doesn't do anything with it. And my biggest question was, how the heck did they get Mark Cuban, a billionaire? What the heck did they pitch him in Shark Tank? Remember when you used to make movies with your friends and then you would like watch it and remember that you had such a great time, but like the movie doesn't reflect? That's this movie for whatever reason. I hate this narrative that Netflix is becoming the new straight to DVD source for things. I don't want that to be the case, but then they release stuff like this and it doesn't help it. The budget was like $100,000, which that's a lot of money. I'm pretty sure all of us would gladly take $100,000, but for a movie, that's why this movie looks so cheap. They're spending all the money on movies like Bright and paying $50 million to get the Cloverfield Paradox, but then they put out stuff like that. And, it's Netflix. I'm sure like half of you out there don't even play for Netflix, but even still, the concept is that they're making movies that are mediocre, and it kind of hurts the overall, I guess, image of the site and like what they have to offer. And then they complain about why their movies aren't like getting the prestige that they deserve. This is why. It's one of those movies that like amps up the volume for literal scenes where someone just walks outside and they amp the volume, just cut to the next scene. It's like, why are you doing it? There's like 13 other reasons I could break down for why this movie is bad, but even if it's on Netflix, it still doesn't mean it's worth your time. Did you know that if you reach for something and you can't reach it, if you just do this and you just rub on your elbow just like that, you will be able to magically touch it just like that? I bring that up not only because it's a fantastic magic trick, but because there is someone who is getting rubbed off at the studio and is giving these people money, and the writers are just stretching out a story that does not need to be. This story was done in chapter 2. The last 2 movies have literally finished with the same plot points of a mother coming in and helping out from beyond the grave. It's like the same ending, and it does that thing that all prequels shouldn't do, which is add that final shot that really just alludes to the first movie. I've seen Darth Maul Ghul already. If I want to watch more of him, I'll go back to the first and second movie. I get that already. The only good things about the franchise so far is the main actress, but they're not even giving her that much to work with, and she's trying to give it her all. But they're also hinting at the fact that they might have her niece, who is the chick from Zack Stone, that she's going to have the same powers and probably continue off the franchise in a little bit of a spin-off. And, I mean, if they're going to do it, I'll support the fact that she's going to be in it, and hopefully she becomes famous. Now, I never got why she was happy in the movie, but I'm always rooting for Taraji P. Henson because I think she's a cool person. I know she has that other movie coming out called Acrimony, Bitterness, Anger, Rancor, Resentment, Ill, Feeling Ill. I don't know, it looks like it's got like a really long title. This one's title is shorter, but what's interesting is that it's based off of a Creedence Clearwater Revival song, and the guy from Creedence was like watching the trailer and went, yo, what the heck is this? I never gave permission for this. That story alone is more interesting than the story in this movie. It's supposed to be like an action film, but like all the action scenes are shown in the movie. If you know those scenes in the end credits where you could tell it's a clip from the movie that you just saw, but it's a blooper and you know they're gonna mess up. It just has that ambiance to it. Every scene in the actual feature film feels like that. So if you want to support Taraji P. Henson, I recommend the movie. If not, I'd say wait and go watch Acrimony, Bitterness, Anger, Rancor, Resentment, Ill Feeling, Ill Will, Bad Blood. This is one of those movies where I think it's got a very interesting concept, but it's also a concept film in and of itself. And what I mean by that is that it's one of those movies that you watch or that producers or somebody else watches in order to be able to get these directors bigger gigs. It's a story of these two brothers who are going by the countryside and they're like trying to avoid people as much as possible, and you can tell that they're hiding a secret, and then things get revealed and you go like, oh, okay, this is interesting. I think it looks beautiful. I think the actors are great. The one thing though is that it tries to do this trippiness throughout the film. Like these Jedi mind tricks, and at a certain point I was like, all right, Alex Pettyfer is in this. Is this like a secret I Am Number 4 Part 2 or something like that? Again, it's an interesting concept, and more so than anything, it's one of those movies where I'm looking forward to what the director's next films are going to be. This is not a walk to remember at all. You know, that's a masterpiece. But this movie, you know, for that first half, it gives you that cheesiness, that, you know, lovey-dovey, that Nicholas Spark types feeling that I know other people, not me, are looking forward to. The problem is when you get to that second half, either they ran out of the budget or they like gave it to a dude to finish up directing and reshoots, because there are scenes where they don't even put dialogue, so you can tell like they were in a hurry to do it. The biggest standout in this movie to me was Little Girl. I don't know how kids work, but if I ever do have a daughter, I hope she's as cool as her. If not, I'm demanding a refund. John Hawkes is an alcoholic. All right, John Hawkes is an alcoholic in this movie. He plays this cop who, as you know, police officers aren't allowed to be drunk on the force, so he gets fired, and it isn't until like years later where this guy, he like comes across this crime scene, so he decides, yo, I want to help out. Obviously, all the cops know him. They're like, no, you're not allowed to help out in any way, shape, or form, so he's like, screw you guys. I'll be a private investigator and solve this small-town crime myself. Thing is, this guy's like a real drunk. He doesn't park in the driveway. He parks on his mailbox, and it's got like a, I don't want to say quirkiness to it, but things like that, where it's very character driven. It looks very dreary. It's directed by a group of brothers. Again, can't wait to see what else they develop, but I think another group of brothers could have done this story a bit more justice, especially because John Hawkes is a really good actor. She should have jumped. I don't hate these movies. I think that they're actually the best of the young adult craze. Problem is, the young adult craze ended a couple years ago. I give the movie credit for not splitting the last book into like a bunch of different movies and that it stayed a trilogy. I give the movie credit for having the balls to almost kill their main actor. And then not only that, after he comes back, the finished product right in the beginning, right in the intro of the movie, keeps the scene where the guy almost died. I know that there are fans for the franchise and they'll like it a lot more than I did. I just think that we can all agree that she should have jumped. I believe there's going to be a Jack Black-assance. I can't say it's going to be fully this movie. This is that Sundance movie that came out on Netflix, so you can watch it there. It's quirky. It's Jack Black doing another accent as this polka singer who accidentally ends up creating a Ponzi scheme. It's quirky. It's fun, but, you know, it's no Nacho Libre. This one's written, directed, produced, edited, funded, and stars the main girl who is in this movie. And it's kind of like Easy A, if you remember that movie where they were reading, I think it was like the Scarlet Letter, and then the events in their modern day high school kind of related that. Here it's The Crucible, and you got this girl who was in a psych ward, you don't really know why, and she ends up getting the lead for The Crucible, where the teacher is going to play the main guy, which it makes no sense to me because it's not like Miss Darbus decided to cast herself in the main role for the spring musicale. I don't know, that part's weird, but he decides to do that, and since he chose her and not this other redhead girl, the redhead girl starts playing the blame game, and then a bunch of, you know, petty high school stuff ensues. I thought it was a decent movie. I do think that the ending is going to leave some people going like, what, that's it? You're not going to give me any more? Again, for me, I'm more curious to see what she does next, because the way that she directs this movie, she doesn't explain everything outright. I like the direction of having just a one-off line, the way that a character stares at somebody to reveal things that aren't, again, outright said in the movie, and I think that was a nice touch. And again, I'm looking forward to see what she has in store. People gotta understand that the noble, brave acts that the soldiers did is one thing. No one's questioning that. They're heroes. The movie's another thing. I like the scenery. They explode a lot of things. I like the storyline with Trevante Rhodes and me as a little kid. They were cool. The only thing is that, I mean, you don't really get to know the people. Anytime they try to have any character development, like there's a scene with Chris Hemsworth where he starts suffering from PTSD because he's never killed a guy. He finally kills the guy, and all he does is just kind of like stare. But he looks good doing it. A radio TV frequency thing causes a bunch of parents to go crazy and want to kill their kids, and the main parents who we follow are Selma Blair and Nick Cage, wanting to just straight up saw up their children. It's crazy. This comes from one of the directors who did the Crank movies. It also has the most authentic Nick Cage freakouts. For those of you who are fans of that, this is a must-watch for you guys. But it is edited like a Spy Kids film. Like, I don't know if they edited this on an iPad or something. It's not like the greatest thing in the world. It's just one of those things that's so absurd and so short, it's entertaining to watch, like if you rent it on Redbox. This has one of the dumbest endings of the year, and I appreciate it so much. The movie's way too long, and the directors of this movie, if in high school, they were probably the guys who like asked you, yo, can I see your essay so I can just, get inspired by it, and then they don't even change anything. They straight up steal exactly what you had to say. They got bits and pieces from their favorite movies that they don't even try to turn it around. They just take stuff from other movies and put it into their own movie. And it's like, I mean, it's ambitious, I guess. This is that movie that, again, get that rental code, get drunk, watch it at home, and see how they had the balls to actually give you that ending. This one's a crime thriller that's told in reverse. And I am a sucker for those. I do think that the tone kind of wanders a bit off at times. Like sometimes it's a lot funnier than the cinematography and the dreary tone that was coming before it. But I like the way that the whole thing, again, is told in reverse. The way that you're following the sequence of events and how different they, kind of a Memento thing where it's like every time you go a little bit back in time, it gives you a reason to go and rewatch it again. This one's on Netflix. It's worth catching. Let me know your thoughts on it if you check it out. This one's the Christian Bale Western where he gained like 15 pounds of mustache to do the role. I think Rosamund Pike is the standout in this movie because I don't want to spoil it too much, but this is like in the first 5 minutes. Her whole family dies, including her baby, but she carries that baby because she refuses to bury it. I am a huge Western fan. I do like 3:10 to Yuma. This one's just one of those like very dreary, sad, violence is just a repetitive circle and it just goes round and round until we show peace and compassion to other people. It is a good movie. It's a fantastic movie. I guess biggest issue is that Timmy doesn't act through the credits in this one. I made a video on the post, but to pretty much cover it up, because I know some people like really, I don't know, are looking down on it. When you do such a good job at work that they stop appreciating you, I feel like we're doing that to Tom Hanks, right? Like, and Spielberg and Meryl Streep, even though, her nominations have become a joke. But it's I don't know, it's a solid movie. I made a video on it. I like Tom Hanks. My number one, without a doubt, is a film that I thought really showed you how relationships worked, and that was 50 Shades Freed, which I'm just kidding. That's not my number one. That's my number one for February. Paddington 2 is actually really dope. My only problem with it is the fact that it broke Toy Story's record, and I grew up with Toy Story. It's a Toy Story 2's record with the Rotten Tomatoes thing. But this is like Amelie for children. It's the way it's edited, how delightful it is. I think it's fantastic. It's super good. I thought the jokes in it were funny. It just makes you smile. Like, it's a movie that makes you smile. And even though it's cheesy to call it delightful, that's exactly what it is. And I think that, you know, with all the difficulties that we're facing right now in the world and all the harsh stuff and how dark things have gotten, it's movies like these that give us a reason to go and escape to the cinema. Oh, and I also saw Creep 2, and that is one of the best intro death scenes of all time. Did you know that if you sponsor your favorite creators on Patreon, that it's tax deductible? It's probably because it's not. But if you do sponsor your favorite creators over on patreon.com, there are a bunch of quirks that you get from people giving you extra clips, bonus scenes, polls, a bunch of different things that can, you know, make your whole experience better. And one of the things, if you head on over to the patreon.com/A to Z show, is this movie trivia thing that we're doing, in where you guys will participate in this live stream movie trivia event, testing your cinema knowledge, all for only $1. That's right. You can help support a channel that you like for less than the price of a McDouble, which I know because McDoubles are freaking $1.17